Hi guys, this is Ken here. I have two major announcements. We have a dedicated Discord community now. Please make sure that you become a part of it and hang around manga lovers like yourself. This is also a good way to be connected to the anime and manga world. The other update is that for the past month, we were working on our dedicated manga reading website, and now anyone can read all the mangas that we post on the YouTube. In our latest update, we made the difficult decision of completely removing all sorts of pop-up, banner, and industry bullying ads. It's a decision that can drain and end us forever. Now, anyone can open our site and read our stories without any pressure of ads. We also doubled our manga collection and are now going towards adding 1,000 more titles in the coming weeks. Now, here is the best part. As we are adding manga, a good number of stories will be premium stories. And I'm talking about the ones you've been going crazy about in the comments. The cursed girl killing bullies one by one. The kind girl who got beaten to death and came back for revenge. The genius boy who decided to change everything. The Yandere princess nobody wanted. The endless loop killer. These are the stories you've been begging to continue, and they're all waiting for you on the premium site. Fully updated, ad-free, ready to read right now. These are stories that I picked and would read myself over and over again. On top of that, enjoy a 300 title mega manhwa collection of all types, constantly being updated. Now, originally our team passed this as a dream, and since we killed the ads, there is no way we can do this at all. This is like trying to fly with paper wings. So we ask you guys to support us. For just $4.99, you get access to our premium manga site. Hundreds of highly rated titles that no one else has access to. You can read and request stories, all while keeping us alive through this shift. Please click the link in the description and join as a premium Ken member. Thank you, and please continue supporting us.
The story begins with Mabachi walking through the school hallway when a classmate approaches her and asks if she can cover the cleaning duty. At first Mabachi refuses because there is a supermarket flash sale she wants to visit before going home. Eventually she accepts the task. Deep inside she reflects that she has never been good at refusing people. After finishing the cleaning duty, Mabachi stops by the supermarket and buys a pack of eggs for dinner. She then walks alone and the beautiful twilight catches her attention. But instead of feeling peaceful, she remembers the strange warning people often repeat about vampires appearing at dusk. When Mabachi arrives home, she notices her aunt with a man inside the house. She quietly enters her room and lies down on her bed. She feels uncomfortable knowing another stranger is staying there again. Instead of thinking about it further, she stares at the moon shining through the window. Eventually exhaustion takes over and she falls asleep. During the night, a mysterious creature silently appears beside her sleeping body and watches her in the darkness. The next morning Mabachi leaves the house and notices an old woman passing by on the street. The old lady suddenly compliments the strange accessory on Mabachi's head. Confused by the comment, Mabachi touches her hair and becomes shocked after discovering two monstrous horns growing from her head. Panic immediately fills her mind. When a guy begins walking nearby, she quickly tries to hide herself. The guy notices her anyway and asks if everything is alright. At that moment Mabachi realizes the horns have completely disappeared. Before leaving, the guy kindly gives her a bread roll. As the days continue, Mabachi's life slowly changes after the horns first appear. Whenever she becomes nervous, shocked, or emotional, the horns suddenly grow from her head again. If she strongly wishes for them to disappear, they slowly vanish. During class, another strange problem begins troubling her because she starts hearing a mysterious voice that nobody else can hear. The voice constantly speaks inside her head, which makes her feel like something unknown is living within her. One afternoon, Mabachi sits alone on the playground while staring at the sky. Suddenly a fast baseball flies directly toward her face, but she catches it effortlessly without even thinking. The nearby students become shocked after witnessing the impossible reflex. Mabachi herself cannot understand what just happened and is left wondering why she is suddenly holding the ball. As she walks away feeling disturbed, she senses there really is another presence inside her body. Later she notices the bread roll she received earlier and begins eating it. The mysterious voice comments that the bread tastes surprisingly good. Once Mabachi unconsciously responds to the voice, their conversations become more frequent. From that moment onward, the voice constantly talks to her, which makes her feel less alone but also more frightened about what she is becoming. One day a teacher informs Mabachi that her guardians failed to appear for the conference meeting. The teacher suggests arranging another date and also mentions a possible scholarship for higher education. That evening Mabachi gathers the courage to discuss the opportunity with the man living in her house. The man becomes furious and declares he does not care about her future because she was abandoned by her real parents. He harshly insists that after graduation she should start working and earn money herself. Mabachi's aunt interrupts the argument and hands her money to buy cigarettes. While walking to the store, the mysterious voice encourages Mabachi to refuse. She quietly continues anyway. After returning home, she notices the front door strangely hanging open. When she steps inside, she discovers a giant monster devouring the man in the room. Nearby, her aunt desperately cries for help. Terrified but determined, Mabachi grabs a knife and decides to fight the creature herself. Mabachi tries to escape from the monster inside the house, but her aunt suddenly grabs her leg and desperately begs her not to run away. Before Mabachi can react, the giant creature rushes forward and violently attacks her. The impact throws Mabachi across the floor and leaves her helpless and unable to move properly. As her vision fades, strange memories begin surfacing inside her mind, and she remembers a cold, snowy day from her childhood. In the flashback, young Mabachi stands alone in the middle of falling snow while her mother prepares to leave. Her mother explains that she has something important to do and asks Mabachi to wait there quietly. Mabachi watches her walk away, believing she will return soon. No matter how long she waits in the freezing cold, her mother never comes back for her. Suddenly, a mysterious guy appears before her. Mabachi becomes confused and wonders who he is. The guy describes her as a lonely and pitiful girl abandoned by everyone around her. Mabachi hears countless voices echoing in her mind and questions his identity. The guy reveals that he is a vampire and explains that he already entered her body earlier. According to him, if things continue this way, both of them will eventually die. Mabachi quietly reflects that maybe dying would not matter much anyway. She remembers all the cruel words spoken about her throughout her life. She convinces herself that being forgotten never truly hurts her and claims she never feels lonely no matter how isolated she becomes. The vampire refuses to believe her. He insists that deep down she is painfully lonely and only hides those feelings from herself. Overwhelmed by emotion, she attacks the vampire in anger. Instead of fighting back seriously, the boy explains that she could never admit her true feelings aloud, so he decided to express them for her instead. The vampire then criticizes humans for making no sense. He argues that if someone truly wants to throw away their life, they should at least struggle violently against the world first. According to him, people should live selfishly, fight harshly, and make decisions for themselves instead of silently accepting suffering. Hearing those words, Mabachi finally breaks down and admits that she hates the weak person she has become. She confesses that she desperately wants to change herself. As Mabachi cries helplessly, the vampire laughs at her emotional reaction and proposes a contract. He explains that he can transform her and help her become someone stronger. In exchange, she must offer him her flesh and blood. Mabachi thinks carefully about his proposal and finally accepts it. If changing herself is possible, she decides she is willing to sacrifice anything necessary. Back in the present, Mabachi suddenly regains consciousness and wonders if everything she experienced was only a strange dream. Immediately, the vampire's voice answers her and reveals that their contract is already complete. The mysterious boy then fully manifests through Mabachi's body and launches himself toward the giant monster. While fighting, he mocks Mabachi for thinking any of this could possibly be a dream after everything she has witnessed. As the brutal battle continues, Mabachi watches helplessly from within her own body. She notices she cannot properly move or even speak anymore. Fear slowly consumes her because she realizes she is transforming into someone completely different from the girl she once knew. Eventually, the vampire defeats the giant monster. After the fight ends, Mabachi reflects on how frightened she truly was. Meanwhile, she also realizes part of her secretly hoped something would finally change in her empty life. Before the moment can settle, Mabachi suddenly gets attacked by a needle and crashes onto the ground. The same guy who previously offered her bread calmly appears nearby and announces that capturing one live target is finally complete because he wants to return home quickly. Mabachi opens her eyes and discovers herself tied tightly to a bed inside an unfamiliar room. Confused and frightened, she looks around the strange place while trying to remember what happened earlier. The room is filled with scientific equipment and glass containers holding small mysterious creatures floating inside liquid. The last thing Mabachi remembers is suddenly being attacked by a needle before losing consciousness. Nearby, the same guy named Fushimizu, who attacked her earlier, happily notices that Mabachi is finally awake. Before he can approach further, a researcher immediately stops her and warns that getting too close is dangerous because Mabachi is a humanoid vampire. Another researcher announces they should begin the examination process by collecting blood samples and recording measurements for future experiments. Hearing those terrifying words, Mabachi quickly realizes she has been brought into some kind of experimental facility. Panic begins spreading through her mind as she desperately insists that she is still human and not a dangerous creature. At that moment, a young girl named Mume suddenly enters the area while searching for her father. The researcher informs her that her father has not arrived yet. As Mume looks around the room, she immediately notices Mabachi restrained on the bed and becomes curious about her identity. Fushimizu explains that they captured Mabachi the previous night and confirms that she is a vampire capable of maintaining human form. The moment Mume hears the word vampire, her expression instantly changes with anger and fear. Without hesitation she rushes toward Mabachi and attempts to attack her, but the researcher quickly restrains the young girl before she can do anything reckless. Mume furiously declares that vampires are enemies of humanity and should never be trusted under any circumstances. The researcher agrees with her statement and explains that their organization does not simply hunt vampires for extermination. Their true mission also involves research on captured vampires to better understand their abilities and eventually discover methods capable of defeating them. The researcher then wonders aloud whether Mabachi will actually prove useful for future experiments. Soon afterward, Mabachi suddenly finds herself alone inside a dark forest without understanding how she arrived there. Meanwhile, back at the facility, Mume asks where another person has gone, and the researcher calmly informs her that she left to visit her father. Deep inside the forest, Mabachi desperately runs through the trees while a terrifying monster chases after her. Completely terrified, she screams for help while struggling to escape the creature's attacks. Just when the monster corners her, the vampire inside her body suddenly awakens and casually comments that he slept extremely well. He immediately mocks the monster for foolishly challenging someone like him and prepares to fight seriously. Back at the facility, the researcher quietly observes the situation and announces that the real show is finally beginning. At the same time, he becomes curious about what exactly is happening to Mabachi's condition. The vampire quickly overwhelms the monster with brutal strength and defeats it effortlessly. After the battle ends, Mabachi regains control of herself and sincerely thanks the vampire for saving her life once again. Mabachi then explains everything that happened after she woke up earlier, including how the people inside the laboratory discussed dissecting her body for experiment. The vampire becomes genuinely confused because he does not even understand what dissection means. Suddenly he senses the presence of the researchers nearby and instantly leaps toward them. Realizing who captured them, the vampire angrily concludes that this man must be responsible for putting him to sleep earlier. The researcher launches an attack and remarks that it is unfortunate Mabachi's body has already been almost completely taken over by the vampire. While watching the fight unfold, Mabachi wonders why she cannot stop her own body from moving according to the vampire's will. Moments later, the researcher attacks Mabachi directly, injures her foot and violently throws her across the battlefield. Inside the dark forest, the vampire loses his patience and declares that he will kill the researcher. While moving through the trees, he suddenly notices another terrifying monster approaching nearby. As the vampire charges forward to attack it, Mabachi watches helplessly from within her own body. She realizes once again that nothing around her has truly changed. Her body continues moving on its own without listening to her thoughts, which makes her feel like a stranger trapped inside herself. The vampire attacks the monster while Mabachi desperately questions what is happening to her. Deep inside, she cannot accept that this uncontrollable creature is now connected to her existence. Seeing her confusion and frustration, the vampire calmly explains that he intends to change her completely. Mabachi realizes she still remains the same weak and lonely person she always was before meeting him. While struggling with these thoughts, another berserk creature suddenly rushes toward her at full speed. Mabachi barely avoids the incoming attack and immediately starts running toward the direction where the other people are gathered. Watching her movements, the researcher quickly notices the danger and warns everyone that she is once again heading directly toward them. In the next moment, Mabachi leaps high into the air and prepares to strike an elderly man standing nearby. The surrounding soldiers panic and loudly call out to the old man, referring to him as Marshal. The Marshal calmly dodges the attack with ease, which causes Mabachi to crash violently onto the ground instead. The nearby researcher immediately rushes toward the old man and anxiously asks whether he suffered any injuries. The researcher instantly points their weapons toward her and accuses her of hunting them from the beginning. Surprisingly, instead of reacting with fear, the Marshal bursts into laughter. He explains that he originally came there simply to inspect the situation, yet somehow they now find themselves controlling and protecting a vampire instead. The old man then calmly asks Mabachi for her name. After hesitating briefly, she introduces herself honestly. Once he hears her answer, the Marshal unexpectedly asks whether she would consider joining the anti-vampire unit. Mabachi becomes confused by the sudden proposal. The Marshal then introduces himself properly as the former commander and current representative serving within the anti-vampire organization. The researcher standing nearby explains that their squad currently lacks enough members and that they desperately need support. Hearing all this leaves Mabachi uncertain about her future because she still has no idea what will happen to her from now onward. Before anyone can continue the discussion, a strange small creature suddenly appears nearby and bites Mabachi's leg without warning. Shocked by the attack, Mabachi stares at the bizarre creature while it complains that it originally intended to take control of her body completely. Soon afterward, the researcher introduces himself as Fuzu. As Mabachi observes him carefully, she quietly wonders whether he is someone she can truly trust. Fuzu examines the strange creature carefully and quickly notices something unusual about Mabachi's condition. He points out that her horns disappeared and concludes that the cat-like being with her must actually be a contracted vampire connected directly to her body. Instead of reacting calmly, the vampire spits directly into Fuzu's face before bursting into laughter. Still exhausted from everything that happened, Mabachi quietly asks Fuzu if she can lean against his shoulder for support. After calming down slightly, she finally gathers enough courage to ask what will happen to both her and the vampire from this point onward. As the bright morning sunlight begins shining through the forest trees, Mabachi suddenly starts thinking about ordinary things again, like eating breakfast and having fresh bread. Meanwhile, the marshal quietly returns to his vehicle and reflects on Mabachi he discovered today. While looking toward the forest, he calmly remarks that he may have finally found a child capable of becoming the keystone to their future plan. Mabachi suddenly appears wearing a cute waiter uniform and nervously welcomes customers inside a cafe. She quietly wonders why her life somehow changes from fighting monsters to working in a cafe like a normal employee. Fushimizu then explains that the cafe actually belongs to him and proudly reveals that he works there as both the captain of the anti-vampire squad and the cafe manager. He points toward the second floor and explains that it secretly serves as the headquarters for their anti-vampire organization. Fushimizu further reveals that he wants Mabachi to officially join their squad and participate in dangerous missions whenever necessary. At the same time, she will also help manage the cafe during normal days. After explaining everything, Fushimizu hands Mabachi a proper work outfit and encourages her to change into it quickly because the others should arrive soon. A little later, a beautiful girl finally enters the cafe and introduces herself as Arasaki, the vice captain of the squad. She mentions that she already heard rumors about Mabachi making a contract with a vampire. Fushimizu then announces that Mabachi's official training should begin soon in the hall upstairs. Arasaki warmly encourages her to work hard and Mabachi begins serving customers throughout the cafe. Although she feels nervous at first, she slowly manages to complete the tasks successfully. Once the cafe becomes quiet again, Arasaki praises Mabachi for doing surprisingly well on her first day. She then jokingly wonders what kind of final training they should give her next. After work ends, the two girls walk together outside while discussing Mabachi's experiences so far. Arasaki asks Mabachi how she feels after spending her first day with the organization. Mabachi admits that everything turns out completely different from what she originally imagined because she expected constant battles and dangerous missions instead of serving drinks in a cafe. Arasaki explains that vampires rarely appear openly, which is why balancing cafe work and anti-vampire duties usually causes no problems for their team. Mabachi admits she never even saw or heard about vampires before recently. Arasaki explains that the government intentionally hides most vampire-related information from the public to prevent mass panic and chaos. Basic warnings still exist everywhere as part of crime prevention education taught in schools. Mabachi remembers the familiar warning repeated since childhood about the dangerous twilight hour when demons supposedly appear and children should never walk home alone. Arasaki then reveals that their final training today involves merging completely with the vampire inside her body. She excitedly insists that she wants to see what Mabachi looks like while fully merged with a vampire, even if only briefly. Mabachi quietly realizes this feels less like proper training and more like Arasaki satisfying her own curiosity. The vampire continues refusing and complains that he only came outside because he thought Fushimi would become angry if they stayed home all day. Arasaki suddenly changes tactics and casually points out how much sugar the vampire consumed earlier while eating sweets at the cafe. She then jokingly threatens to ban sugar completely for the rest of his life unless he cooperates. The moment the vampire hears the possibility of losing sugar forever, he panics instantly and finally agrees to merge with Mabachi. A powerful energy suddenly surrounds Mabachi as the vampire fully merges with her body once again. Arasaki watches excitedly and asks whether Mabachi can feel any differences after the transformation. Mabachi quickly notices her body feels much lighter than before. She realizes she can jump higher, heal injuries rapidly and gain overwhelming physical strength. Arasaki explains that with these abilities they can easily fight against dangerous vampires. Mabachi still remembers how terrified she felt during her previous battle when fear completely froze her body. She wonders whether she can truly fight powerful monsters like this. Arasaki reassures her that everyone feels afraid in the beginning. According to her, people eventually learn to overcome fear for the sake of protecting what matters most to them. While walking home together, Arasaki explains that she originally joined the anti-vampire unit because she wanted to protect her little brother. Mabachi notices a suspicious vampire standing nearby. Arasaki begins considering whether they should capture it immediately or at least contact Fushimi for backup just in case the situation becomes dangerous. Before Arasaki can react properly, the vampire suddenly attacks and breaks the small phone keychain attached to her belongings. The moment she sees the broken item, Arasaki remembers that her little brother gave it to her as a birthday present. Rage immediately overwhelms her expression, and she raises her weapon while furiously declaring that the vampire should regret everything forever in hell. Without hesitation, Arasaki opens fire at the vampire, while Mabachi watches in complete shock beside her. The bullets strike directly and the vampire's body suddenly splits into two separate pieces. Instead of dying, the creature continues moving normally. Mabachi becomes horrified after noticing that the wounds fail to heal properly, yet the monster still survives. The vampire inside Mabachi calmly explains that the enemy possesses two connected cores shared between both bodies. According to him, those cores function similarly to a human heart and brain. Destroying only one side is not enough to kill the creature completely. If they truly want to defeat it instantly, both cores must be destroyed at exactly the same time. Mabachi finally realizes that the monster can only be killed by targeting those cores together. The vampire further explains that although there are other ways to kill such creatures, smashing the cores simultaneously remains the fastest and safest method. Hearing this makes Mabachi remember her earlier battle when she accidentally destroyed a monster's core purely by luck without understanding what she was doing. Mabachi quickly turns toward Arasaki and tries explaining that they can defeat the creature if they destroy both cores together. Unfortunately, Arasaki already runs out of bullets during the fight. Mabachi begins noticing that Arasaki's behavior seems unusually emotional and unstable because of her anger. She considers contacting Fushimi for help but immediately realizes she has no phone and does not even know the route back to headquarters. Meanwhile, the vampire questions why she refuses to fight despite officially joining the anti-vampire squad. He reminds her that from now onward, fighting and killing monsters will become a normal part of her life. The vampire then offers to take control of her body again and kill the enemy himself. He casually warns that he might accidentally kill Arasaki as well while fighting and laughs cruelly at the possibility. At that moment, the monster begins approaching a nearby house where innocent people are still living. Mabachi immediately remembers Arasaki's earlier words about protecting the people and daily life important to someone. Without thinking further, she instinctively rushes toward the house after reacting to the vampire's voice. Mabachi bravely prepares herself for battle and launches an attack against the monster. Because of her fear and lack of experience, she completely misses her strike. Just before the creature can retaliate, Arasaki suddenly appears beside her again, while aiming her weapon with furious determination. With perfect timing, she successfully destroys the creature and finally kills it. As the battle ends, she quietly whispers that she has finally avenged her little brother. Those painful words leave Mabachi speechless because she realizes Arasaki has already suffered terrible loss because of vampires in the past. Later that night, they safely return to the cafe headquarters. Arasaki explains everything that occurred, including the sudden vampire attack in the city. Fushimizu becomes surprised that such an incident happened in a normal residential area, but feels relieved knowing both of them survived safely. Fushimizu then asks whether they contacted the authorities, and Arasaki confirms that support teams are already handling the aftermath. He reminds her to finish writing the official report before the end of the day. Meanwhile, Mabachi quietly eats dinner while thinking about the family they protected earlier inside that house. She wonders whether those people normally gather together peacefully for meals like this every night. As she reflects silently, Mabachi remembers Arasaki's words about protecting family, lovers, friends, and ordinary daily life. For the first time, she begins wishing she could become someone precious like that for another person. Even if she cannot fully understand those feelings, yet the thought alone starts giving her heart a small sense of warmth and purpose. Mabachi stands in front of a dark, abandoned tunnel and immediately feels something terrible about the place. Fushimizu explains the reason: they are investigating the location tonight. According to the reports, several students visited the tunnel together as part of a courage test, but some of them mysteriously disappeared halfway through. Another girl who planned to visit the haunted location also never returned home afterward. At this point, 4 separate missing person cases are already confirmed, and the anti-vampire unit receives orders to investigate whether vampires are involved. Mabachi nervously suggests that maybe the victims were taken away by ghosts instead of vampires. She even tries asking Fushimizu whether he secretly believes in ghosts too. Once she remembers how many people already disappeared, she starts wondering why the normal police are not handling the situation instead. Before Fushimizu can properly answer, Mabachi suddenly becomes frightened by something touching her nearby. Trying to calm her down, Fushimizu explains that it is only a harmless bug and reminds her that ghosts do not actually exist. Mabachi immediately begins talking about the famous rumors connected to the tunnel. According to the first rumor, blood suddenly drips from the ceiling inside the tunnel. Right after she mentions it, mysterious blood instantly falls directly onto her and terrifies her completely. Fushimizu calmly explains that this probably means vampires are nearby. Mabachi then mentions the second rumor involving mysterious screams echoing through the tunnel. Almost immediately after saying it, a horrifying scream rings throughout the darkness. Fushimizu remains calm and explains that more vampires likely settled inside the tunnel because people constantly visit the location for courage tests, which gives the creatures easy victims without much effort. A little later, Mabachi notices Fushimizu staring at nothing nearby and becomes confused by his behavior. Fushimizu then realizes Mabachi has been casually calling the vampire creature beside them Sato the entire time. Fushimizu then asks Mabachi about the third rumor connected to the haunted tunnel. Nervously, she explains that according to the final rumor, anyone entering the tunnel eventually becomes trapped forever without finding the exit again. Fushimizu points out that this particular rumor does not really sound related to vampires at all. Moments later, Mabachi suddenly realizes they truly cannot seem to leave the tunnel no matter which direction they walk. While panicking over the situation, Mabachi suddenly feels another strange presence nearby. At first she assumes another bug touched her again, but then she remembers they are supposedly the only people inside the tunnel. Fear immediately overwhelms her as she begins wondering whether this time it might actually be a ghost instead of a vampire. Suddenly a girl appears directly in front of them and watches Mabachi screaming in terror. Embarrassed by her reaction, Mabachi quickly apologizes and admits she honestly believed the girl was a ghost at first glance. After calming down slightly, Fushimizu and Mabachi introduce themselves properly. Fushimizu then politely asks the mysterious girl for her name and wonders whether she is a student wandering through the tunnel alone. The frightened girl introduces herself as Akari Saito and explains that she originally came to the tunnel together with her friends as part of a courage test. Fushimizu immediately reminds her that the tunnel is officially off-limits and asks what happened to the others who entered with her. Akari nervously explains that one of her friends was walking right beside her moments earlier. During the walk, her friend's voice suddenly disappeared completely, and when Akari looked beside her, the girl was already gone without leaving any trace behind. She describes the missing friend as Hana, a girl wearing a sailor uniform, and desperately asks whether they have seen her anywhere nearby. Fushimizu answers that they have not encountered anyone else inside the tunnel yet. Since they never passed another person while entering, he assumes Hana may have already escaped outside somehow. He suggests leaving the tunnel together for now while helping search for the missing girl at the same time. Fushimizu senses the tunnel instantly filling with an overwhelming number of vampires. The air itself feels heavy as if they are completely surrounded. He comments that the scent is too thick, which confirms that multiple vampires are hidden deep within the area. Mabachi tries to reason through the situation and reminds Fushimizu that if there were this many missing people, the police should already be investigating. Fushimizu explains that the police did come earlier, but not a single officer ever returned from the tunnel. That statement immediately makes the situation far more dangerous than expected. Mabachi becomes anxious and worries about what might have happened to Hana and whether she is still alive. The vampire inside her begins reacting again, and Mabachi suddenly sees a disturbing vision of Akari being surrounded by multiple vampires. Panic spreads through her mind as the situation escalates rapidly. Fushimizu quickly grabs Akari's hand and rushes her out of the tunnel entrance using a fast escape route. Once outside, he checks if she is injured. Akari confirms she is unharmed but confused as she asks what just happened inside and what became of Mabachi and the small cat-like creature traveling with him. Fushimizu quietly responds that Mabachi is gone for now. He assumes that if she is still with Sato, she should remain safe for the moment, but they need to locate her quickly before anything worse happens. Fushimizu decides to re-enter the tunnel alone to investigate further. Before leaving, he instructs Akari to forget everything she is about to see or hear and warns her that the situation may become too dangerous for her to process. Inside the tunnel, Sato becomes trapped and urgently tells Mabachi to remove the restraining force holding them down. Mabachi struggles but cannot immediately break free, which causes Sato to complain angrily that her attempts are too slow and ineffective. After a moment of effort, Mabachi finally manages to release both of them from the trap. Sato immediately orders her to stand up and leave the area because they have been dragged too deep into the tunnel. The environment is completely dark, which makes visibility nearly impossible. Mabachi nervously calls out his name while trying to stay close in the darkness, but Sato insists that his name is not Sato. Mabachi, still shaken, thanks him for saving her earlier. Sato coldly rejects any gratitude and states that he did not do it for her sake, but only for his own survival. If she dies, he would also be at risk, so everything he does is purely self-preservation. Mabachi then questions him about the contract they share and how he ended up inside her body. Sato explains that merging with her increased his chances of survival, which is the only reason he agreed to it. He makes it clear that he has no intention of forming any emotional connection and orders her not to speak to him casually again. Mabachi responds calmly that she is not trying to become friends. Instead, she simply wants to understand him. She believes that beings like him cannot be truly understood without learning what kind of world they come from, what they have experienced, and how they see life. She expresses a desire to understand him for that reason alone. She also states that she will continue using his strength for her own survival as well. Sato warns her that sharing the same body does not make them allies, and if she becomes a hindrance he will not hesitate to kill her. The tension between them increases as the darkness deepens around them. Suddenly the tunnel becomes even darker and Mabachi panics as she loses all visibility. She calls out for Sato and is unable to confirm if he is still nearby. Fear grows as she wonders if someone or something is trapped with them and whether the rumors about the tunnel truly mean no one can escape. Just as panic reaches its peak, a sudden bright light floods the area and forces Mabachi to cover her eyes. The overwhelming brightness breaks through the darkness and momentarily changes everything around them. At the same time, outside the tunnel, Fushimizu warns Akari again to forget what she is about to witness. Akari, increasingly worried, asks what he truly means by that warning. Before he can fully respond, the situation escalates inside. The vampire, now fully manifested through Mabachi's body, appears in front of them. Without hesitation he announces that since both of them have come out into the open, he will simply kill them. The atmosphere instantly turns deadly. Fushimizu reacts immediately and moves to protect Akari by positioning himself between her and the vampire. The two stand face to face as the confrontation finally begins and the anti-vampire captain prepares to fight against Mabachi's possessed form. Fushimizu is surprised when a sudden attack happens without warning and he struggles to understand the strange situation around him. He thinks about Mabachi and Cat and wonders if they are also trapped somewhere and refuses to believe it at first. The mysterious man speaks coldly about humans being fragile and incomplete, which makes the situation feel even more disturbing. Sato keeps walking endlessly but finds no exit at all, as if the place stretches forever. He realizes the tunnel-like space is not normal and starts to suspect that it is formed from broken human memories. He notices people who disappeared seem to be absorbed into this strange place. The truth begins to take shape that the tunnel itself behaves like a living vampire feeding on memories. Mabachi becomes lost inside hallucinations and suddenly finds herself inside a familiar house from her past. She cannot understand how she arrived there and questions the presence of strangers who feel like family. They treat her gently and tell her to rest, which makes her question whether she has always lived in that place. Her memory becomes unstable as she drifts deeper into the illusion. Sato watches Mabachi from outside the illusion and tries to reach her while shouting for her to wake up. He realizes she cannot hear him and is completely absorbed in the false world. He desperately tries to pull her out and understands that time is running out because she is sinking deeper into the memory trap. He believes she is losing herself to the hallucination completely. Meanwhile, Akari searches for Hana but finds no signal on her phone and becomes increasingly worried. She does not know where Hana has gone and feels helpless in the empty surroundings. At the same time, Fushimizu confronts the mysterious man and accuses him of being involved in Hana's disappearance. The man denies everything and behaves as if he knows nothing. Fushimizu presses further and questions the identity of the man while linking him to strange transformations where humans become vampires. The man responds ambiguously and refuses to confirm anything. Fushimizu then mentions a specific name to test the man's reaction. He suddenly becomes aggressive and attacks, which reveals hidden hostility and confirms Fushimizu's suspicion that he is not human. Inside the hallucination, Mabachi sees Hana outside with a monster-like presence nearby. She rushes toward a door but finds it locked and impossible to open. A voice from within the house tries to convince her that the outside world is dangerous and that staying inside will keep her safe and happy. The voice attempts to trap her mind deeper in comfort and illusion. Mabachi resists the idea and feels strong determination to escape. She believes she must save others despite not having enough strength yet. She struggles emotionally but refuses to accept staying trapped in the false safety of the house. Her desire to protect others grows stronger even as the illusion tries to keep her contained. Sato realizes the memory tunnel is becoming unstable as fragments of vanished people begin collapsing into chaotic waves of thought. He pushes harder, trying to break Mabachi free while the illusion resists strongly. Fushimizu stands after the attack and confirms the enemy is truly not human and is likely a memory-consuming entity. Akari runs through empty pads, still searching for Hana as panic rises with every step. Inside the hallucination, Mabachi senses a strange power awakening inside her as she refuses to give in completely. The house voice grows louder but she begins pushing against it mentally while distant cracks appear in the illusion world as all events start converging toward collapse itself. The locked door finally opens and Mabachi immediately realizes Hana is suffering from the same hallucinations, trapping everyone else inside the tunnel. She understands that if Hana stays there any longer, the core of the tunnel will completely absorb her and eventually kill her. Hana is trapped in painful memories from school where classmates insult and isolate her, which makes her believe nobody would care even if she disappeared forever. The cruel memories continue surrounding Hana as she tries to push Mabachi away and insists that nobody asked for help and that nobody should follow her. She acts cold and hopeless because she believes she has already been abandoned by everyone around her. Mabachi refuses to accept those feelings and desperately tries to reach Hana emotionally before the hallucinations completely consume her mind. Mabachi gently tells Hana not to speak about death so casually because there are still people who truly care about her. She explains that having someone who reaches out during painful moments is enough reason to keep living and fighting. Mabachi praises Hana's strength and refuses to let her give up on herself even after everything she has suffered. As Hana listens, memories of Akari suddenly return to her. She remembers Akari happily congratulating her for getting accepted into high school and promising they would remain friends forever even if they attended different schools. Akari also promised she would always come running whenever Hana needed help. Those memories begin breaking apart the darkness surrounding Hana's heart. Hana collapses emotionally under the weight of everything she has been carrying and Mabachi quickly catches her before she falls completely. At that exact moment, a monster suddenly appears nearby and forces Mabachi to stand protectively in front of Hana. Even though fear still remains inside her, Mabachi prepares herself for battle without hesitation. She realizes that being hurt no longer scares her as much as losing the people she wants to protect. Elsewhere, Fushimizu continues fighting the mysterious vampire-like man inside the tunnel. Their battle grows intense as both sides try to overpower each other. During the chaos, Akari finally notices the horrifying truth that the tunnel itself is abnormal and connected to the strange disappearances happening around them. She rushes deeper inside and finally discovers Mabachi and Hana together. Akari immediately runs toward Hana and tightly hugs her in relief after confirming she is safe. The fear and worry she has been holding in finally burst out emotionally. She angrily tells Hana never to disappear again because she cannot bear losing her. For Hana, hearing those sincere words directly from Akari finally breaks through the loneliness and despair consuming her. Meanwhile, the mysterious man suddenly decides to retreat from the fight. He casually announces that he is leaving for now but warns Fushimizu that their next meeting will end with Fushimizu's death. Fushimizu tries stopping him, but the man changes his appearance freely before disappearing. Watching this strange transformation, Fushimizu realizes this ability must be connected to the powers of vampires. After the battle settles down, Mabachi notices Fushimizu without his glasses and becomes strangely fascinated by his appearance. At the same time, Sato quietly reflects on Mabachi's past and wonders about the life she lived before all of this happened. He thinks about the white cat appearing inside her memories and suspects it may hold an important connection to her true identity. Sato begins believing that if he learns more about Mabachi herself, then perhaps she may eventually understand him too. Later, the mysterious man contacts someone else and explains that the tunnel can no longer be used safely. The unseen person questions whether he failed the mission, but the man quickly denies responsibility for what happened. The other individual calmly promises to assist next time while warning him not to make another mistake. Even the mysterious man appears irritated by the conversation, but the unseen figure coldly reminds him that the current problems exist because of him. Fushimizu checks on Mabachi's medical test results and learns that her condition is becoming dangerous. Arasaki explains that she is suffering from anemia because her fighting style constantly uses her own blood as a weapon. On top of that, she is also giving blood to the vampire Sato. Arasaki strongly advises her to completely rethink the way she fights before the damage becomes serious. Fushimizu calmly accepts the warning and immediately begins planning a new training method. He explains that Kyoko has just returned from rookie orientation and decides this is the perfect chance for both girls to train together. The doctor worries that Kyoko and Mabachi may not get along at all because of their personalities and background. Soon afterward, Mabachi finally meets Kyoko for the first time. The moment Kyoko notices that Mabachi is a vampire, she reacts with shock and openly refuses to accept the situation. She cannot understand why a vampire is being allowed inside the unit at all. When she learns that Mabachi joined the squad without proper training, her disbelief only grows stronger. Fushimizu explains that Mabachi entered the squad after regular training had already begun, so he plans to give her special training instead. He orders Kyoko and Mabachi to begin working together starting the next day. Kyoko immediately protests and insists that the entire idea is impossible. She cannot understand why she has been chosen to train a vampire and strongly refuses at first. Despite her complaints, Kyoko eventually begins the special training session with Mabachi. She explains that Mabachi's current fighting style relies entirely on using her own blood, which is dangerous and unsustainable. Because of that, the goal now is to develop a completely different combat style that does not depend on self-harm. Kyoko then reveals a strange black liquid created from vampire blood by Chiba and the others. She explains that the liquid can form weapons depending on how much is used. A full bottle creates a spear, while smaller amounts can create knives or other weapons. She tells Mabachi that if she wants to survive as a fighter, she must learn how to use weapons properly instead of relying only on blood powers. Mabachi experiments with the liquid and decides to create a spear. The weapon immediately forms in her hands and marks the beginning of her new training style. The sparring session starts right away, and Mabachi carefully searches for an opening to attack first. Kyoko quickly overwhelms her with superior speed and experience. During the fight, Kyoko explains that simply having a weapon with longer reach does not guarantee victory and reveals that she carries more hidden knives than Mabachi expected. Kyoko harshly criticizes Mabachi's current abilities and declares that if this is all a vampire can do, then Mabachi is nothing but dead weight for the squad. Later, Arasaki notices Mabachi looking discouraged after the training session and asks how things are going. Mabachi admits that she cannot even land a single hit on Kyoko and becomes convinced that Kyoko truly hates her. Arasaki explains that Kyoko's older sister was killed by a vampire in the past. Because of those painful experiences, deep hatred toward vampires exists among many squad members. Even so, Arasaki encourages Mabachi not to lose hope. She explains that people only judge her because they do not yet know the real Mabachi. Arasaki believes that if others can slowly understand Mabachi through her actions and personality, they will eventually come to accept and even like her. At the same time, Kyoko privately questions Fushimizu about why he specifically chose her to train Mabachi. Fushimizu answers calmly that Kyoko possesses a unique kind of strength that only she can teach. He also surprises her by claiming the two girls are actually very similar when it comes to kindness deep down. Before leaving, Fushimizu casually prepares the bike and tells Kyoko to come down once she is ready and leaves her quietly thinking about his words. During another training session, Kyoko admits that she has always considered herself physically weak because of her small size, short reach, and lack of strength compared to others. Instead of fighting directly, she developed a combat style based on maintaining distance, using speed and relying on surprise attacks to overcome stronger opponents. Kyoko explains that fighters should learn how to use their natural strengths and weaknesses properly. She believes one of the best ways to survive is by understanding oneself objectively and building a fighting style around personal characteristics. While speaking, she encourages Mabachi to stop blindly copying others and instead discover the best way for her own abilities to work together. Even after hearing the advice, Mabachi still struggles badly during sparring. Kyoko defeats her repeatedly with ease and decides that one final round will end the training for the day. Mabachi desperately tries dodging every attack but realizes she has too many weaknesses to keep up. While defending herself, she suddenly remembers that her greatest strength has always been Sato taking control of her body during battle. She quickly asks Sato to concentrate his strength into her right fist while still keeping control of herself. Sato complains about being ordered around but still cooperates enough for her to attempt the technique. Mabachi throws her weapon away during the fight, which makes Kyoko think she has become desperate and reckless. Believing the spear toss is only a distraction, Kyoko prepares for a clumsy close-range attack. Mabachi rushes forward at the perfect moment and unexpectedly lands a direct slap across Kyoko's face. Mabachi becomes horrified that she actually managed to strike Kyoko and immediately starts apologizing. Later, Mabachi becomes nervous about how angry Kyoko might be after the incident. Then she notices a small snail sitting in a dangerous spot where someone could easily step on it. Without hesitation, she gently moves it to safety and shows kindness even while distracted by her worries. Watching this quiet moment causes Kyoko to remember Fushimizu's earlier words about the two of them secretly being alike deep down. Kyoko finally admits she still hates vampires because of everything that happened to her family and because of the pain vampires caused in her life. Despite that hatred, she realizes she does not actually hate Mabachi herself. Even though she struggles to fully accept the feeling, she quietly acknowledges that Mabachi is different from the monsters she despises. Trying to hide her embarrassment, Kyoko challenges Mabachi to land one more hit and reminds her that using fists against vampires can sometimes be more effective than weapons. Mabachi immediately becomes happy and emotionally blurts out that she loves Kyoko too and misunderstands the meaning behind her words completely. Kyoko instantly panics and loudly denies confessing any affection at all. Flustered and embarrassed, she insists that not hating someone is completely different from liking them and warns Mabachi not to misunderstand the situation. Nearby, Arasaki quietly watches the interaction together with Fushimizu and feels relieved seeing both girls finally smiling naturally together after all their tension and fighting. She admits they secretly followed the pair because they worried the training might end badly, but she is glad things worked out in the end. Fushimizu agrees while observing the progress between them. Meanwhile, Sato watches the entire scene from a distance and becomes confused about why Fushimizu and Arasaki seem to be following them around.